Welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This week on Outer Spaces, we have Zachary Beach. He is a real estate investor, a coach, and also a best-selling author, owns multiple businesses in that sector. And he has a way, it's called creative financing. It's a way to finance deals. I know because when it comes to, getting into real estate, it can be a little bit crazy, right? It seems really daunting and big. And what if I lose money? And holy moly, I don't know what I'm doing, especially the first few deals. That's how I felt, at least. But these guys here have figured that out. You can get involved with their community, their masterminds, their coaching, and you don't have to feel like you're alone trying to figure this all out on your own. Plus, they have a bunch of, and we talk deeply about this on the podcast, of three different deal flows that are creative, that require very little money out of pocket, but they can get you into real estate quicker than you can even imagine. So anyway, take a listen here. There's going to be a lot of great information. Take notes as you go, and see you on the other side. Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space. Through this show, I hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. On Outer Spaces, we're passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow, and through my 25 years of dirt under the nails experience, I look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and today's guest went from a bartender to a real estate expert, coach, and 3-time best-selling author. Books like Real Estate on Your Terms and New Rules for Real Estate Investing, and Sell with Authority for Real Estate Investors. He's the CEO of Smart Real Estate Coach, also a partner in multiple 7-figure businesses, and a co-host of Smart Real Estate Coach and Not Just a Transaction podcast. So without any further ado, Zachary Beach, welcome to the show.
Josh, well, I'm happy to be here, my man. I'm glad we were able to set some time aside and dive in. We'll have some fun today.
Absolutely, dude. I already love your energy. This is going to be good. So I love to hear a little bit about your story. I'd love to hear about how you got into real estate, how you went from being a bartender to a real estate expert, and how you got into all this craziness, man. Take us for the ride.
Yeah. I won't go all the way back, but we'll start. So I was, I like to always say I was a rich, poor kid growing up in a rich town. So I always had like that chip on my shoulder, and that's been consistently my mindset forever. So I'm sure a lot of my paradigms will come up throughout this podcast as well. So I was one of those kids that the only reason why I went off to college is because my teachers told me I couldn't. So what I ended up doing is going to school with really no particular direction. So when I got out of college, I became a bartender, and then I needed some more extra cash and I had some additional time. So I said, all right, let's become a personal trainer. So I was doing that for about 4 years. And as you can imagine, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was staying up really late at night, and then I was waking up super early in the morning. And I was doing that for about 4 years. And there was a moment in time where me and my wife, she also was a bartender at the time, had this epiphany. It was like 4:30 and we were exhausted. I didn't see my family in like probably 4 years, because every time they were on vacation, I was working, because that's just how it worked as being a bartender. So we just had this epiphany. We just said, hey, we want something different in life. So we got to figure out how to make that next move. So I actually approached her father, who's my father-in-law, and I knew that he was revamping his real estate investment business. He got crushed in 2008, lost basically everything. So he now had this new business model with creative financing, which is what we do today. So I approached him and said, I don't know if I'm going to like real estate investing, but it's going to be a heck of a lot better than what I'm doing right now. So at that time, we ended up, it took me about maybe about 90 days of just doing some of the grind work in real estate investing before I went ahead and kind of burned the bridges, made the leap. And it still even took me another 60 days in order to get my first deal. But we created a bridge per se in order to get us to real estate investing, and things have kind of transpired ever since.
Dude, I love that. I love it, dude. And especially coming out of the you won't make it in college. You're like, watch me. Right?
Yeah.
It's, I love that, dude. So I know that I speak to a lot of business owners around the country quite consistently. And the number one thing that they wish they had was, how can I create cash flow? How can I create a business or an entity that pays me when I'm sleeping? Right. Like that's the goal, right? That's the dream, because most of us in this industry work way too hard and oftentimes for way too little money. Right. So at the end of the, end of the month, there's just not enough money to make it. Or end of the year, you're like, I thought I made a lot and really found out that you didn't. So, imagine not having to go week to week, project by project, that kind of thing. Imagine if you could actually set up a kind of a system where you could start saving money. That's one of the first things I tell people is like, what if you just took 10, 15, 20% of your revenue throughout the, the net revenue at the end of each month, and put it away and start building a nut so you can finally have something to start investing, whether it's in the market or whether it's in real estate or whether it's in something that's not related to your business. Because the ultimate goal with wealth is to be making money when you're sleeping, right? That's the target. So I'd love to hear about how you you mentioned how you got started out, but like what the first deal looked like. How do you help people? I know you've written multiple books and all this kind of, and you coach people. So how do you get people to do their first deal? How do you get them started on this path to cash flow and financial freedom?
Well, that's a great question, right? I know you and I were speaking offline and we were like, what's the biggest challenge? And that's getting started, especially in real estate investing, because it's, people would consider it competitive. But I think what we're going to share here today is some of the secrets that most people either are ignorant to or are choosing not to learn, which is creative financing. Because you can either go off and do exactly what everybody in HGTV is doing, and the reason why there's smaller and smaller profit margins on those because it's extremely competitive, or you can come do some of the things that we're talking about here, which is buying real estate through creative means or non-traditional means. And really that comes in the form of a couple different ways. One would be lease options, which are just really to be able to control a piece of asset or an asset without ownership. So really easy to go ahead and acquire an asset that way. Or two, buying them on owner financing. So having a seller become your bank. It's roughly a third of the properties in the United States are debt free. And then we have this last technique, which is probably the most misunderstood technique, but everybody's just starting to hear about it, which is buying properties subject to the existing loan, which is you being able to acquire a property without you ever going to get a new loan on that property, because we're just going to keep the original seller's loan. Me being a bartender, if I didn't have creative financing, I never would have been able to get started. And here's why. Because I was not bankable. I didn't have much money in the bank. And I was going to be unqualified I was even unqualified to go buy my own personal residence, and I had to do it through creative financing at that time. So the way in which we kind of look at our rules are no banks, no personally guaranteeing debt, and no large down payments. And by looking through that filter, you then become very creative at buying real estate. You become very creative at solving people's problems. So me being the person that didn't have a lot of money, I was the one that was going to devote my time to this. So when I first got started in real estate investing, I was the one that was pulling lists, making phone calls directly to those sellers, working my scripts, and then generating my own appointments. And then my own appointments, I would then see the properties and then make offers on the house. So I would consistently do that. And I did that specific for about 2 years, where all I was the one that just did the phone calls, did the appointments, and made the offers for our family business. And eventually we ended up doing 4 to 10 deals per month with a small team.
Nice.
But so when I give advice to somebody, it's like, how do I just get started? Well, really, there's two things. One is you gotta really go ahead and acquire the knowledge, because once you have the knowledge, and I don't mean like the procrastination knowledge, like I'm going to learn everything before I do something. No, you just have to know enough in order to have a conversation. And then once you know enough to have a conversation, now you take your first step. Most people don't get started because of 4 things. One is they don't have enough support. 2 is they believe they don't have enough experience. The other one, 3 is that they don't believe they have enough time. And the 4th is they don't believe they have enough money. Well, through creative financing, we can actually eliminate a lot of that. So when you first get started, it's just about acquiring enough knowledge and then going to put some of this in action. Because all real estate investing is, and this is where it was very helpful for me to know, is all real estate investing is a communication game. It's just a people game. It's a relationship game. It actually has nothing to do with the asset itself. We just happen to, in real estate investing, utilize a house as our commodity and then make money from it, which then, of course, could lead into how we actually make money in this business and how to be able to save money in this business. And that is through our trademark 3 payday system. Because we're doing things through creative, we can now sell creatively as well, which is where we're going to get large lump sums, cash flow, and then build wealth in these deals. Again, with little to no money in the deal, and with a risk-averse method, especially in today's market, with a risk-averse method, because I haven't gone to a bank and I haven't personally guaranteed any of the debt.
I love that, dude. I love it. And I know when I first started in real estate, it was my wife and I had a little cottage on the lake, and we were looking to get a bigger house because we wanted to start a family. And I was like, let's sell it. Put the money toward the house. She's like, what if we rented it out? And I'm thinking, that's really cool. I'd be the first landlord in my family. This would be really neat. We have passive cash flow. This is going to be amazing. Yeah. Then the tenants come along and the headaches come with them. And then the toilets break and then they don't pay. And then they do pay. And then they just kind of check out and they just go and they don't tell you that they're leaving the house, and then they break shit. And it's like, it was a constant headache. And for 15 years, Zach, I did that. And there's so many times I wanted to sell that place. And I'm like, honey, sorry, we're putting that thing on the market. I am not dealing with finding another tenant and having them destroy the place. It's just not happening. Right. I hated it, dude. I got a couple $100 once I cleared all my debt and everything. I was like, I had a couple $100 at the end of the year and like a month. And I'm like, this is insane. So anyway, we had a good friend of ours reach out and said, hey, I met this guy that is someone who we all know. And he's actively starting to buy real estate in this area. Are you interested in getting in? I was like, hell no. I got one. It's like a crazy kid that just doesn't listen. Like, it's just not worth it. Anyway, she says to me, this is what changed it for me. She goes, but keep in mind that they actually have a management company, and that management company manages everything. You buy the asset, they manage the asset. And I'm thinking, all right, so if you're telling me like we could buy buildings and they would take over everything from cleaning to client relations to repainting, reflooring, all that stuff, and we just have to own the asset. And I'm like, okay, how many can I buy? Right. So I was like, we're in. And it was bumpy as hell, dude, because I didn't have a lot of experience except for all the pain I had for 15 years with the other house. So it took a lot of rewiring and everything. And eventually was able to, and through mentorship, I had an awesome mentor throughout this, you know, like you said, get somebody that knows what they're doing and just tie into them and start learning and drain their brain dry. And that's what we did. And then within 9 months, our acquisitions set us up a year later to be financially free. And it's something I didn't know anything about. So what I'm saying to the listeners out there is I didn't grow up in real estate. It was brand new for me. And the next thing you know, because of mentorship and because of taking the problems out of the way, the obstacles out of the way, this became a passive vehicle for us to give us and take us to the next level. So anyone out there that's considering this, listen to what Zachary's saying. He's going to give you some creative ideas in order to be able to finance this stuff if you don't have a big nut sitting on the side. Yeah,
Josh, I'm glad you brought that up because I've talked about this with one of my mentors, and he said, it's interesting how we're taught in school. In school, if you go and you collaborate with your teammates, unless you're assigned to a team, if you go and collaborate with some of the students in your group, or if you ask or pay somebody to do your homework or to take a test for you, then it's cheating.
Yes.
But as soon as you become an entrepreneur, you actually get rewarded for that because it's literally the secret to advancing more quickly. Yes. And that is to join groups of people that have been there ahead of time, or to hire somebody that's already been there. So that way they can give you the knowledge and you avoid all of the mistakes that they made originally. And that comes in the form of mentorship, coaching, masterminds. And if you look at even the greatest CEOs out there. So there's this book called $1 Trillion Coach, and it's about the coach who mentored like the CEO of Google and a couple other major tech companies. So once I read that book, I was sold because I was like, well, anytime I want to master something, I'm just going to go find somebody that's already did it. Yes. So that way, at least I can fast forward the amount of years that it's going to take for me in order to get to mastery, as long as I'm willing to commit, put my blinders on, and then go right for it. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because anytime I want to accomplish something, I go ahead and I find a mentor, or a coach, or a mastermind. And usually that comes in the form of any type of thing I'm trying to accomplish. This could be fitness. That's the reason why most people that actually have personal trainers are going to be more successful than if they try to do it on their own.
100%.
Just that example, it's because of the accountability. It's because of the knowledge. It's because you don't have to think anymore. You just go ahead and do what they tell you to do. So I just want to hit on that point.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I saw a quote once, which I thought nailed it. It says, you should be investing more in yourself than on yourself. So in yourself, your mind growth, right? Then on yourself and clothes and doodads and bullshit around you, right? Because when you do that and you make yourself a priority, your growth a priority, you then get the opportunity to see things from different perspectives. You get the opportunity to work with different coaches, different people. It's incredible. I have coaches in every single asset of my company, every single part of my life, right? I have coaches just about everywhere. And the reason why is because if you can compress decades into days, why wouldn't you? Somebody that took 50 years to learn what they're going to teach you in a couple of months, why would you wait an entire lifetime to learn that, dude? Why wouldn't you want to learn it now? Why wouldn't you just say, look, it's going to cost me some money, but it's going to cost me a hell of a lot more if I do nothing? It's crazy. It's an investment. It's not a cost.
Hey, my man, I think we're speaking the same language but the truth is, it's hard if you, I always look through the perspective of somebody, because people that join our community, either they're coming from one of two different perspectives. One is that they've invested in coaching, especially because everybody is a coach nowadays, right? You do like one deal and you're a coach. They've invested in coaching and not been able to see the results that they hope to see. And usually that comes through lack of support,
right?
Or lack of commitment. Or the other one is that they've never invested in coaches before. Yep. So with those two perspectives, it becomes very hard for someone to think of that as an investment, because they have not been able to get the returns on their investment that you hope to share with them. But once you start to see those returns from investing in yourself, then you start going, all right, where else can I invest in myself? Yes. What other program can I join? What other mastermind can I, because you see the results in the return on your investment. Is every time I've been able to make major strides in my life are when I either have a coach or I'm consistently focused on mastering a very specific thing in my life.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. And there's something else, listeners out there, that I've realized during my journey is there's times when, and I don't mean this in any egotistical way, please don't take it that way. When I look around me and I see that my circle that I'm hanging out with are either at the same level or, on journey wise or below where I am behind me. And if you don't surround yourself with people that scare you, that you're like, holy crap, like I want to be like them, but I am like the dumbest person in the room. And if you don't do that consistently, you're going to get stuck. And I've had times in my life where I got stuck, and then I look around and I'm like, I love all you guys. You're awesome. But I need to go into a different room where I now feel like a kindergartner again, and to look up and say, okay, where am I going to go? And it's not for the money. It's because I love this, the thrill of learning. I want to say, how far can I go, dude? If God gives us so much time on this planet, how far can I go? Let's see, right? We don't know until we go. So let's just see where it goes. So to be thinking, okay, who am I surrounding myself with? Are they where I want to go? And if not, how do I get around those people? You got to love your family for who they are. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, who are you spending time with beyond that? Are you sitting in masterminds with people who are saying things that you're looking up? You're on Google while they're talking, trying to figure out what the hell that's happened to me recently with a couple of different deal structures, and they're talking through stuff. And I'm Googling, I'm like, what does this even mean? Like, I'm the dumbest guy in the room right now. And I'm going through it. And I'm like, but you know what the crazy part is, Zach? In like 4 or 5 months from now, those words are going to be flowing off my tongue. I'm going to understand what they are. But it's just because I'm willing to be the dumbest one in the room. And that's when you start to really grow, when you're willing to humble yourself down and throw that damn ego out and focus on trying to get into those spaces. Because that's when the stuff, there's so many times I've been so uncomfortable because of that exact situation that every single cell of my body wanted to run out of the room. And I'm like, no, just stay in here. And then a year later, you look back, you're like, dude, I eat that stuff for breakfast now. The stuff that used to scare me because you kept coming back. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah. It's a commitment, though. That's the biggest thing. This whole thing's a commitment. Everybody, there's a sexiness about, especially like real estate investing or investing period. But there's a major commitment to understanding and then consistently putting in action. So if we look at like KPIs, like consistently, it takes a lot more no's than it does a yes in order to get the investment. It definitely does in my space when you're getting people to sell you a piece of real estate with little to no money down, without you personally guaranteeing debt, without you going to a bank. There's going to be a lot more no's. So that's where the consistency and the commitment to this craft ends up putting you far above everyone else, because now you can look at, like you said, you can look at things differently. If anybody presents me a real estate deal, I can look at it completely different than somebody that's a rookie in this now. And I have very specific questions that you can ask in order to now determine one of two things. And typically we want to look for both, which is what's the motivation of the seller? And then what are the financials on the property? Yeah. I know that some of the toughest questions that people face are those two segments, which are the two things that we need the most in order to determine what type of structure we need. Because everybody's like, well, why? I can't ask people questions. People aren't going to tell me anything. Or why would somebody actually tell me about the financials on their property? It's all about solving people's problems. Once we go in with a doctor mentality, which took me a long time to figure out, a doctor mentality where you're trying to prescribe a solution. Now it's almost like you're doing them a disservice if you don't ask those questions. So that way you can solve people's problems.
I love that, dude. You know, the problem that we run into when we go into new situations is that, and I know from a fact that I've dealt with this, this for a long time, this mind construct, being afraid of being rejected, right? So we have a bigger fear of being rejected. That's why no is a problem, because then they're like, no, they're not saying no to you, Zach, or no to me, like you're a horrible person. They're just saying no to a deal, but we take it personally, right? And we're so afraid of that rejection that we don't even do it. We come up with all kinds of excuses like, they probably won't say yes. And why would I even do that anyway? Or I'm not comfortable doing that. The reason why is because you're trying to protect your ego from rejection. That's really what it is. And if you just put that to the side and say, look, this is an offer. They can say yes or no to it. It doesn't affect the kind of man that I am or what my offer even is. It's just that's their reaction to it. And I can't control their reactions. All I can do is control my offer or control my ideas, or at least start working as a collaboration. But when you realize that the rejection is typically what holds people back, that's why they become very slow to make decisions and very indecisive and all that, because they just don't want to face the fact that somebody might tell them no.
Well, and the interesting part of what you bring up is that no is when the conversation actually begins.
Exactly.
Especially when somebody's being introduced to a new concept. So in creative financing, it's more of an education than it is like a salesmanship. Because really, the world of the population has, especially in the United States, has been trained a very particular way on how real estate is done, right? We're even trained since we were young. It's like, go to school, get a good job, save up enough money, then go buy a house that you're going to live in for the next 30 years. And then you're going to pay off the mortgage and now you're debt free. It's like that concept. And how you find a house is you go find your local realtor, which most likely is probably your friend or a friend of the family. And they're going to show you around and then eventually they're going to help you buy the house. And then if you want to sell a house, you're going to do the exact same thing. It actually has nothing to do with the qualifications of the actual realtor. And I know there's lots of good ones out there, but there's no qualification. It's like, who do I know that's a realtor? And I'm going to have them come and list my house. And then I'm going to sell that way. So from a real estate investor's perspective, now we have to completely educate the end consumer. So it's like, when I'm going to buy a piece of real estate, I have to now explain how creative financing works. And I bring them through a 7-step, basically, education process to then get them to, number one, understand the concept, then be open to the concept. And now we can use that concept in order to solve their problem. But so we go through those steps. So when somebody tells me no, and yes, I used to take it as a huge ego hit, but now it's an opportunity. It's like, all right, now the seller has put his foot down. He or she is now able to say no. And now usually once they put the wall up, now they're open to having a conversation. Because it's like, all right, I said no, I got that out of the way. Because usually it comes based out of fear. New concept, it's either they're afraid or don't understand. And if they're afraid or don't understand, they automatically say no. So now when somebody says no, it's great. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, totally get it. 99% of the people I buy from want a traditional sale. So, it's normal. Can you tell me what I just spoke about? What part of that doesn't work for you? Now what we're doing is we're just going to start uncovering the actual objection that they have. I don't understand it, or they have a misconception of the situation. Now you get to move forward and handle the misconception. So it's all just an education process. And going through the no's is actually, I tell our real estate investors to get to the no as quickly as possible, because now we can have a conversation.
Dude, yeah, you knocked it out of the park there. And I love how you framed that question, because when I hear no, oftentimes it's like, all right, well, I guess that's it. I just got to put my tail between the legs, or I'm going to try to justify the hell out of the reason why I asked. You didn't do that. You first did empathy. I totally understand. It sounds crazy. Most people want traditional financing, but if you wouldn't mind me asking, what about my offer didn't you like? To that, he didn't say it exactly, but to that frame, right? So you first acknowledge that you understand their feelings, and then you ask them a direct question, and you ask permission first, right? And by doing that, clients like, or anybody's like, well, yeah, I mean, the problem is I just don't like the structure. The terms are too short, too long, whatever. I want more money down. You're like, okay, sounds like we're getting somewhere, right?
Yeah,
but if you say
exactly. Now we can start narrow it down.
We have a focus now. Great, cool. So we're looking, to your point, we're looking for no as fast as possible. And then we can finally have a constructive conversation. But first, empathy, right? That's what we teach in sales. It's always empathy first. Mrs. Jones, I totally understand this. It sounds crazy. I know it sounds like a lot of money. But if you had to pick your top 3 priorities for this project, what would they be? Right? Curiosity, you're a detective, upward tonality, question. And she's like, well, it seems pretty safe. I'll answer. And off she goes. Because that's because you're really guiding. You mentioned earlier, right? You're not trying to take control of anybody. You're trying to help them. We're trying to guide them. This is supposed to be a win-win. Let's try to figure out where the objection's at, and let's figure out how to adjust and go. So
yeah, I love it. Well, talking salesman to salesman.
Yeah, exactly. But it's and I hope the listeners are getting the enormity of what we're talking about here, because this works everywhere. Oftentimes as guys, we want to get in there and just kind of get to the point quick. Like, dude, you want to buy it or not? Here's my terms. Here's my page. Buy it or not? Like that's what they're taught on TV shows, to be this stoic individual that just says, here's what it is, pounds their fist, and shit happens. Like, that's not how the world works, right? We have humans. We're dealing human to human here. Men or women, doesn't matter. So by doing empathy first, and then asking permission, and then asking the question again, simple enough, you will get to a conclusion, and you're going to have the opportunity for that client to learn something too. So it's so important.
Well, it's because, and this is important to hit on, and that is, it's not the yeses and nos that keep you up at night. It's the maybes, or what could I have done differently? So being able to engage, or encouraging you to go ahead and engage in furthering the conversation, you're never going to be kept up at night, because it's okay if it's a no.
Yeah.
If you look at our business, for when it comes to our profits, it's somewhere on average, it's like $45,000 to like $250,000, all 3 paydays on our deals, and roughly a 5-year span, for example. So how many of those yeses do you actually need in order to create a great lifestyle and consistently do that? So it's okay if it's a no, because most of the time it's not necessarily a full no. It's a no, not right now. And then you ask for permission to go ahead and follow up with them later. But really, you're just trying to eliminate the maybes. It's like, just go ahead, and what we always encourage people to do is like, ask just one more question. It's like right when you're at the peak where you feel as though you asked every question, just ask one more. Because then you just never know where that's going to lead to. But most importantly, you as a real estate investor, you know where to bucket the lead. It's like, all right, it's a yes, I'm moving forward with an offer. It's a no, I'm going to move them to a follow-up. But the maybes, you're like, now you're following up with them like every 7 days or 3 days or 20 days. You don't really know where they stand, because you're still trying to figure out what their problem is. So we got to find a way to make them take a fork in the road. And usually that's just through asking more questions, through curiosity.
Exactly. 100%. Leading them with great questions, guiding them through a process. All that is so important. And you're right. The maybes are the ones that keep us up at night. They're like, maybe, did I say the wrong thing? If I just call them one more time, or maybe when the moon is full and it's 3:00 on an afternoon, it'll be perfect. And like all the stars will align for this, and it's no different when you're selling projects or you're doing any service work, anything like that. It's when you're dealing with people, you have that potential for yes, no, or maybe, and trying to eliminate the maybe certainly makes the entire relationship, both sides, more pleasant, right? So no is not your enemy. No is your friend. It's the first opening of the door. So just keep that in mind, guys out there. It's a super powerful little snippet there. Now, what I'd love to do, Zach, is to go deeper. And you mentioned there's 3 options in your creative, it's probably more than that, but 3 options you focus on for creative, getting money creatively for these deals. You mentioned lease option and owner financing, and then also taking over the note. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to go a little deeper into each one of those and how it could, a first time real estate investor, they found a deal, they found a place that like, this looks like it's going to be good. It's well within our range of costs. Like, this looks like it's going to be a good deal. And I know in the beginning, you don't always know. If you have a mentor, they can certainly help you. You read books, do all that stuff. The first ones are going to be bumpy, dude. They're just going to be bumpy because you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's just like when you started walking, you fell against stuff like that happens. happens, right? So how do you hedge your bets so you don't have as much risk in the game? And also, how do you do this if you don't have a whole lot of money sitting on the side to play this game, but want to get into it as well? So could you walk us through those three and how they could start us out?
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to. So within those three options, there can be many ways in which you can maneuver. And if you just even go on our YouTube channel, we do a deal structure Sunday every single Sunday for like the past 4 years. So there's so many different.
What is that YouTube channel?
If you just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/YouTube, you can go. It's called Deal Structure Sundays, and every single Sunday we share with you like where we found the lead, how we, what the motivation was, what the financials were on the property, how we structured it, how we exited the deal, and then the projected paydays on every single deal. As you start to go through more and more deals, you start to realize that nothing fits inside a box. So I'm going to give you guys basically a box. But know that I could always ask you another question as a real estate investor, and you might look at it slightly differently, each one of those deals. So like a lease option would be probably the first step I would go if I was a brand new real estate investor, had zero real estate experience. And the reason why is because on a lease option, or we call it a lease purchase, the title's not transferring. So we're not even dealing with any closing costs. Most of these deals can just be done DocuSign. Because it's really, there's really two pieces to the agreement. It's like the lease agreement, which is stating that you're going to take over full control of it. Think of it as like a net lease. You're going to take over full control of the property, including taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. Like you control it. And then there's the option price that you have on it. And the way we structure that is we actually lock in the seller's equity. We don't have an option price. We lock in the seller's equity, which allows us every single month, if we're making a mortgage payment, we're getting the benefit of the principal pay down. So we're able to create some equity in these deals. Okay. This now agreement is, the intent is now we're going to go sell it on rent to own. We tend to exit on rent to own or work with buyers that need time in order to qualify for loans, because it allows us to do a couple things. It allows us to now collect a non-refundable deposit, which is our payday one, which is typically 3 to 10% of a raised premium or raised price. Because our buyers need time to qualify for loans, we're going to go ahead and we're going to raise the price because they're going to be in the houses for, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they actually have to go exercise their option or go get a bank loan. During that time frame, we're now able to collect cash flow too, because we're going to get a higher monthly payment. So we're going to collect the payment. We're going to have the delta, and then we're going to make the payments on the property. We are also going to pass along any and all responsibilities to that end buyer as well, because they're going to be treated like and they're going to act like homeowners. So I know you were talking about earlier, like not dealing with tenants. Well, that's a major reason why we structure it this way is, the deals may be shorter in theory as far as the time frame for when we buy the property when we sell it. But we also don't have to worry about any type of management because we're placing all of the management basically on the tenant who's going to become a homeowner. So they're going to treat the house like it's their own. So we eliminate all of that. So a lease purchase is really simple. Seller stays on title. You get control of the property. Now you have the ability to go ahead and sell it. That's really all it is. And you just have to exercise that agreement before your end date with the seller. And your buyer agreement is before yours. So that way the buyer cashes you out, you pay off the seller, goes through traditional sales. So just think of it as like a delayed cash close.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why it's really easy for somebody to step into that as a brand new investor, is because it's really easy to have that conversation with a seller because, these deals are little to no money down on them. So you don't have to worry about having capital on the side. You also don't have to worry about closing costs. And you're also going to have a buyer in your hand before you actually go and take it over. We have those contingency agreements in place. So you have 3 to 10% down in your pocket before you even place a buyer on the house. That's how you create cash out of, just based on a contract. And then you can also cash flow it. But having a conversation with a seller is the seller's not as worried because the seller still remains on title. It really, if they had to eliminate it, you just go through an eviction policy with you. Instead of a foreclosure. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that are getting the tax benefit on the property throughout the time frame as well, because the taxes, are tax benefits going to follow the deed.
Got it.
So that's how a new investor would get involved rather quickly, unless you have a mentor or you're working with somebody like us that we're buying and selling real estate with. because then we can construct these deals and walk through the process because we have the experience ahead of time.
I love that you have that YouTube channel. Could you say it one more time? Because you can actually go on there and watch him go through these deals and see all the stuff you don't normally see, the kind of the back end stuff that really will help you find deals, structure deals, and understand how to write them up and do the underwriting. So what's that YouTube?
Yeah, again? Just smartrealestatecoach.com, okay. smartrealestatecoach.com/YouTube.
Got it.
You and I both know that real estate investing is like, if you want to go create wealth, you want to take ownership on these properties. So once you've got a couple of lease options underneath your belt, it's very, you're going to be very likely to start doing other types of transactions like the owner financing and sub-2s because you want to get in the ownership realm.
Yeah.
So then you would just be using like the lease option as like your, last ditch effort. It's like, oh, the seller won't do one of the other options. Let me go ahead and, I'll throw this other option out there and see if they do it because I'd rather get some money than no money. So then we cross over into the ownership realm, which owner financing is a fantastic tool in order to buy real estate, because when you approach a seller, you're typically approaching a seller that's debt-free. And as I mentioned earlier, it's about a third of the properties in the United States have no debt on them. They have no mortgage. So that tells us that the seller is in a good financial standing because if they needed money, they would have refinanced.
Right.
Or they would be renting it. They'd be doing something. So they're in a good financial standing if you're approaching these sellers. So when we approach the sellers, now we're looking to close on it. So now the title is going to transfer to our company. Again, we don't personally guarantee debt, so everything goes into an LLC of ours or a trust. And then we're now going to structure the loan with the seller. So best case scenario, which we've done many of these, little to no money down, 0% interest rate or principal only payments, and for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
A good rule of thumb is like you can typically get 0% interest if you're going, 5 years or less. And it's important that you do if you have a balloon payment where the full note is due within 5 years or less, because you need to get that principal pay down as low as possible so you can create more equity in the deal faster. Mm-hmm. And it also hedges yourself against a market if it goes down, because you should see some of the deals in which we do. So like, just give an example. If you have $1,000 principal only payment, so there's no interest in the loan, every year it goes down $12,000. So in 60 months, it's $60,000 has come off the principal balance. That's how you build an equity in these deals significantly faster than, obviously a loan with interest.
Yep.
If you end up doing longer term deals, then it's very likely an interest rate's going to be involved, or not to go too deep, or what we would call like a step stair ladder, which is like the first 2 years are 0% interest, and then it moves to like 2%, and then 3%, and then 5%, and then eventually it could be like a normal, say 6-7% interest rate. And we're doing these things consistently, especially in today's market, because right now sellers are looking for alternative options, especially in the transition market right now. And then the last one, and I would say the most misunderstood, even though it's a very simple transaction, is buying properties subject to the existing loan, which now you're actually approaching the opposite type of sellers. This tends to be more of a seller that's in a financial challenge.
Okay.
So when we approach sellers that are open to this, they tend to be one of two things that's happening. One is they potentially could be behind on payments. So they're going to need an investor like you to catch them up, which of course, if you're coming, this is brand new into the deal, then you may not have the money in order to catch them up. So that's where you stick to some of the other options. Or the seller doesn't have any equity in the deal. We have bought properties from sellers where we've saved them anywhere from 5 to 15% on their homes, because if they go pay a realtor closing costs and they don't have any equity in the deal, they're coming out of pocket at the time of the sale.
Yeah.
Now, many sellers are way more likely to leave their loan in place than to pay you money, even if that could be a safer route for them. So when we go ahead and we acquire these properties, we'll just buy it for exactly what the seller owes. We'll catch up their loans if needed. And then now two things need to happen in a deal like this if there's no equity. One is that we need to have the principal pay down over time. And then two is we need to have the market appreciate. So we tend to hold on to these deals a lot longer. And then eventually there's an equity that gets built in, and then we'll go ahead and sell it.
Yeah.
So that's really how those three, and of course there's many different other factors that come into play. That's really how those three types of transactions pan out.
No, I love that. And so for the two ownership sides, so we have the owner financing, which is kind of as it says. So you're going to work with the owner itself and say, look, most likely you don't have a lot of debt on the property. So if that's the case, can we structure some kind of a deal where I pay you instead of a bank, and we work it through, and maybe it's a balloon payment at the end or whatever to pay off the difference, but it buys the buyer, essentially yourself, some time to get that deal structure in place. And then if you can get that low interest rate, that's going to help, long term, put more money into the equity and not so much into the bank. Again, if they're open to that, it's an option. But if you're worried about being told no, then you'll never ask and you'll never know. Right. And the worst thing they say no and say, okay, then what kind of deal? I totally get it. That might seem a little crazy. So what kind of deal structure would work best for you? If you don't mind me asking. And the next thing you know, they'll be like, well, what if you just, I do have a little bit of a note left. What if you take over the note and, we go from there, right? So it's like, okay, there's other options on the table. So taking over the note. So is it as simple as, okay, if I had a $300,000 value house and I have $100,000 I owe the bank, that there's a way that you can commit as the investor or the buyer and to assume that 100,000, like bring it to your name and you kind of assume the property that way, plus obviously the value for the equity above. But how does that structure out?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So we actually don't assume anything. That's why we're buying it subject to the existing loan. If you go on the HUD statement or closing docs on any traditional sale, there's actually a section over there that says subject to, and it could be liens, it could be loans. And really buying a property subject to means that we're leaving that in place and it's going to remain attached to the seller's credit. Okay. So we're not assuming it's not going into our loan, into our name, because that would essentially mean we'd break one of our rules, which is now we're going to personally guarantee that debt because now we have to take on that loan if we're assuming it. So what we simply do is we'll structure a deal. There's a couple different ways in order to structure it from a paperwork standpoint, but we utilize attorneys or title companies. We'll close on it, and then just that loan will remain attached to that seller's credit. Now, if there's, say, in that example, $200,000 in equity, now the seller is actually going to be financing that equity. Because we're going to close on it for $300,000. Seller is going to more than likely hold a second position on that property, or you could create a new mortgage known as a wrap mortgage, or where it would now service the original loan as well. But we won't get it. Maybe we'll have to come back for that. Yep. But in the end, what that simply means is there's going to be a piece of the loan that's still attached to the seller. You are contractually obligated to continue to make that loan that the seller had. And then depending upon how you structure the equity in that, or then now you're looking at, that could be a secondary loan that now you have to factor in, which could come in many different forms. That could have interest, that could have a balloon, that could be a full amortization, that could be 0% interest. That could also be just a placeholder loan where you don't pay any interest, you don't pay any monthly payments, and you actually just pay it as a lump sum when you go and cash out that property at some time in the future. So many different ways you can structure it.
Got it. So I guess these three options allow people to get into the game without a ton of money out of pocket. I think that's the bigger point here, right? To not say I can't get into real estate and get all the benefits of the passive cash flow, the appreciation, hopefully, the tax benefits, and all the benefits you get from real estate that are all factored in and drawn into the entire IRS code. There's no shady stuff going on here. They want us to do this. That's why they give us such incentives. So this allows you to get into the game and start that process forward.
Yeah, Just, let me just give you this example. So I've been in real estate now for 8 years. I've never personally guaranteed debt. I've actually never put in any of my own capital. I've rolled in capital from other real estate deals, but never put in any of my own personal capital and never went to a bank other than my own personal residence. And this includes commercial and multifamily as well. And so just last year, we did almost, I think it was like 74 real estate transactions with students across the country. Not a single one of them did any of those things that we talked about either. So this is about, you could get into these deals with no real estate experience. You can get in these deals with little to no money. But this is also for those investors that are looking to add this onto their current portfolio because they're throwing away deals. Wholesalers out there that it doesn't fit inside their current box. Fix and flippers out there, it doesn't fit inside their current box. Now you have other options. So this is for the brand new or the seasoned investor. It's about helping people have more tools in their tool belt. So when they're having conversation with sellers and buyers, they now have more options for somebody. So now it's more likely they're going to get more deals done, or better deals, I should say.
Now, is it easier for people with lower credit scores to work in your environment versus going to a bank?
As the investor or as the
As the
tenant buyer?
investor. As the investor.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't matter. Right now I have like an 800 credit score.
Yeah.
The bank I've never been asked what my credit score was because nobody's ever pulled my credit.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter. Like, so for example, though, my father-in-law got crushed in 2008. His credit was junk, right?
Yeah.
But we structured deals in which nobody asked us for our credit.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. This comes with a position. Like when you're positioning in your conversations, because people ask, like, why would a seller ask you for your credit? It's because we have scripts and positioning for if somebody ever did. And then you as the investor have to be okay with saying no to a deal where a seller wants you to do certain things like that.
Yeah.
And also us as person, we're not personally buying the real estate either. Our LLC is buying the real estate. So we're not personally guaranteeing any of the contracts either. Our LLC is, which again adds another layer of protection, but also makes it extremely risk averse when it comes to, especially compared to other real estate investment strategies.
No, I love it. It's definitely an open opportunity for others. What I was trying to get at is people that might be listening that are thinking like my credit's been dinged, banks won't give me money, whatever. Is there a way that I can get into these kind of deals in this creative way that they don't really take that into account? Because it's not that it could have just been a bad few months or a bad year or two, whatever. Like in business, that happens. How do I bounce back without being judged by the bank, right? So I'm thinking of these structures. You correct me if I'm wrong, but your deal structures are much more open to flex or more flexible. I know sometimes with some of the different loans we have with banks, they take a look. They take a look at the credit score.
Yeah, of course.
I as well have high 7s, low 8s, and it's but they take that into account when they bring their financing machine out, right? So that can be a bad thing for people that are in, that been dinged.
100%. Yeah. And to help those real estate investors or want to be real estate investors, we're never going to speak to a bank. So you can, whatever your credit score is, it doesn't matter.
Got it.
Yep.
So tell me exactly what you do. If I'm an investor and I want to work with you, Wicked Smart. So how do you help me? How do we start creating deal flow? How do we start creating cash flow? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So our Wicked Smart community or at Smart Real Estate Coach, what we've really done is we've taken our internal family business that we originally created here in Southern New England. We took all the systems, the procedures, and we then created a community and systems and procedures around that. So now if somebody comes and joins our community, they now get access to like one-to-one coaching, masterminds, group coaching. But really, it's set up to be in such a way where we almost place a coach inside their company. So that way, now you have a quasi partner in order to help you do deals. So, for example, while we're helping them build lead flow and really helping them create confidence in their communication, a coach could get a lead to a certain area, and then now a certain part of the conversation. Now a coach calls in, does a 3-way phone call, moves that deal forward, even though, say, said student doesn't have the experience yet, moves that deal forward, works the deal, and then could actually help close that deal. And that deal will now go into that student's portfolio. So now they're starting to be able to benefit from it. And then we just have a rev share component of it as well. So now everyone's incentivized as coach and investor to continuously do more and more deals because we're all benefiting, we're all winning. So the student now gets access to all the experience, the knowledge, the process, the procedures, and then also, but then the coach also gets access to and gets to participate in the real estate deals.
Got it. No, so they're actually you're gonna join hands with the people.
100%.
You're gonna join hands and walk them through the fire and be in it too. So you benefit financially, they benefit financially. That's how the world works, right? It's not always a one where I get all the deal and they just help me for free kind of thing. So that's definitely a very powerful way to do it, especially starting out or getting into these more creative deal structures. So that's definitely very interesting. So it's fun. I love coming on podcasting and learning new things and hearing people that are out there killing it in a way that I've never thought of or heard of, or even taking what I've heard of and thought of and adjusting it in a way that is just unique and interesting. So thank you for that, Zachary. So if people are out there listening and they're like, look, I'm getting tired of working my tail off here, running my business. I feel like there's not enough there's more month than money, and I'm just getting sick and tired of going project to project just in order to make things meet. I'd rather have some kind of cash flow coming in. I want to start building, a legacy for my family and start to invest in assets that are actually going to hold value or appreciate. How do they get started? Not to get started, but how do they get engaged with you, and where can they find your content? Where can they start getting more information to find out what you do?
Yeah, let's even do this. Let's make sure that every single person that wants it can get access to our Amazon best-selling book. We'll actually ship it to you for free. I'll get a nice hardcover. All you got to do is go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Joshua. That's wickedsmartbooks.com/Joshua. Again, it's absolutely free. We'll ship you out a nice goodie package, but also you get access to our first Amazon best-selling book, Real Estate on Your Terms. And that book will really guide you through in more detail everything we just talked about. Plus, you'll get to hear more of the founder story, my father-in-law, my story, my brother-in-law. We're all integrated in there, so you can really get a connection of how we really have created systems, processes, and a very particular trademark 3 payday system around this, and how people around the country are doing deals utilizing these systems. So again, that's wickedsmartbooks.com/Joshua.
I appreciate that, Zachary. That's certainly helpful. Any last thoughts or words of wisdom you have for people that are looking to get started and just haven't pulled the trigger yet?
Yeah, I normally wear a shirt that says "Life Rewards Action," and I've taken that from one of my mentors originally. And it's, if the shorter the time frame we can go from actually thinking of the decision and then making the decision, the faster we're going to be rewarded from the universe consistently. So I've seen too many, and of course I've been through it just like everyone else, but I've seen too many of our students come to us and were like, I wanted to start investing in real estate 5 years ago, or 7 years ago, or 3 years ago, and now they're starting to see great success. And I just wish that they saw the success earlier, because they could have if they made the decision earlier. So I would just encourage each and every one of you to make at least the first baby step. It doesn't have to be something dramatic, but make that first baby step, take that first action, and you'll be rewarded for it.
I love that. Thank you, Zachary. And, take listeners out there, take Zachary up on his offer with the book, get it shipped to you, take a look into it. At a worst case scenario, you might learn something, right? And I'm sure that him and his team can definitely help you on your journey. I know it's absolutely changed my life getting into real estate. And, as the economy changes right now and there's flexibility happening, and we are seeing fewer projects come into our doors for a construction side of things, I'm not worried. I'm just really not worried, because we have real estate as a protection. We have multiple ways to have stability. So I don't have to worry about if my family's going to eat. I don't have to worry about if we're going to be able to pay the mortgage. Like, that's just not a worry anymore. And the reason why I say that is because it was for so many years. All these little grays in my beard came from all the years of worrying about, oh my goodness, the economy's going down. Like, what's going to happen? What if people stop buying this stuff? What are we going to do? How am I going to feed my family? That was always on my mind. And now, after taking, usually about 20% of income from my wife and I, putting it together, put it in like a little nest egg and starting to invest in real estate. That was our strategy. I didn't know a lot of the stuff that Zachary talked about, but he has an option where you can get in where you don't even have to have a lot of money, and you can get started on building this empire. And that's the cool part, because, when you think back about it 10, 15, 20 years from now, you look back and you're going to be like, holy crap, thank God I made that decision, because now I don't have to worry about those same things I did before, right? We're growing. So thank you, Zachary, for coming on today and bestowing these different, fun, unique, creative ideas when it comes to real estate acquisition and learning. And, the cool part about his process as well is you don't have to do it alone. You've got an entire team, masterminds, groups that you can talk to. And if you've never done deal structure before, go to his YouTube channel. You can see how it's done. And you can say, you know what? That's not that hard. I know when I first started underwriting with my partner, my mentor eventually became partner, and he was showing me how to underwrite deals. I'm like, it's really that easy? Why don't they teach this shit in school? Instead of calculus, right? The stuff you'll never use, right? So why don't they teach you how to underwrite deals in school? I mean, because this is what makes you eventually financially free. And it's like, why wouldn't you teach that in school? But they don't, right? So anyway, thank you, Zachary, for coming on today. And everyone listening out there, thanks for going through with us here. Take a look into Zachary's information, his stuff. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. And hopefully in a very short amount of time from now, you can look back and say, you know what? This is the podcast that changed everything. Now my family is on the way to being free, and we can travel more and be more, to have some more time together, and to just live life on your terms. So Zachary, thank you. And everyone out there listening, see you next week.